8:20 at the Big 550 KTRS. I am Paul Harris, filling in for McGraw today. He's taking the rest of the year off. David Blaustein is not, though. He's on the phone, ready to go to talk about movies. And before we get to the two big movies that are opening tomorrow and into the Christmas weekend, David, we've got to talk a little bit about The Interview, which is getting some play in some theaters here in the St. Louis area. The Chase Park Plaza Cinemas and the Galleria Cinemas and MX Movies and 4 Werenberg theaters in Arnold, O'Fallon, De Pere, and Chesterfield have decided they are going to show The Interview either starting tomorrow or perhaps starting next week. What's your reaction to what's happened here in the last week with this movie?
None of this is terribly surprising. I mean, maybe it was a little surprising at first if we're going to go all the way back to last week when you have the 4 major theater chains saying, all right, we're not going to play this movie. And then Sony made a terrible misstep because I'm going to defend Sony a little bit because Sony never said that they wouldn't release the movie. They just said that they had no plans to release the movie at the moment. And it might be semantics, but they should have known better. They should have said, we don't have plans to release the movie at the moment, but we are going to explore and exhaust every avenue to make sure people can see this movie because what's happening isn't right. And then, unfortunately, they waited until they were criticized by the president, and then they released a statement saying, look, it's not us, it's them. It was these 4 theater chains that said they didn't want to release it. We want to release it, and we're exploring all of our options. And then you have somebody like the Alamo Drafthouse, which is a great independent theater chain, leading the charge, putting together a coalition of the willing, if you will, and of independent theater owners, and telling Sony, look, we want to show this movie. And then it happened very quickly. That's the only thing that was surprising, that it happened so fast. So starting tomorrow, as you mentioned, a lot of great independent theaters in your area will be showing the movie. Independent theaters all over the country, over 200 will be doing the same. I even understand that there's a theater chain in Detroit that's going to be showing the movie for free. That's nice as well. And then what I'm also hearing that within a matter of days it may be available a VOD, video on demand, for people who aren't familiar with
which
that
the theater owners can't be happy about, that they're going to do what's called a day and date release both in movie theaters and online.
No, but I think everybody's probably on board in the spirit in which people are showing this movie, which is also at the same time to thumb our nose or give the you-know-what to North Korea at the same time. So I don't think they're going to be too angry about it. Look, this is an unprecedented situation. There are a lot of things to be angry about in this situation, but it's almost a patriotic act to show this movie. And it's almost a patriotic act. It could be considered a patriotic act to order this movie on VOD. And let me tell you something. If you go online and you look at the Red Band trailer for this movie and see some of the jokes that are executed by Seth Rogen and James Franco, at first you're going to laugh because they're so dirty and so juvenile and to some of them to great comedic effect, that it's ridiculous that it caused an international incident. And then you might cry because this caused an international incident.
Yeah. How would the video on demand work? iTunes, YouTube, Netflix?
Yes. It could be all of the above.
Hulu?
It could be Hulu. It could be. It depends on who's willing to show it. It depends on who Sony cuts a deal with. It could be, Crackle. Who knows? Any one of those companies, any company that executes video on demand, it could be your cable company, it could be DirecTV, whatever avenue Sony chooses to explore or whoever they cut a deal with, that's who's going to show it. So if you have Apple TV or you have a Roku box or your DVD player streams apps or you have a smart television, you will probably be able to access it once it's made available.
Okay, but this movie is not going to make the money back for Sony in only 200 or 300 theaters and video on demand, is it?
No, it probably won't. You're never going to equal the power of releasing a movie on 2,000 screens. It's not just going to happen, especially in big movie theaters. We're talking about a lot of independent theaters, and a lot of the independent theaters simply don't hold the same amount of people as the regular big, powerful movie chains. But they're still going to make money. I think at this point, Sony's happy if they just make back the money they spent on the movie, which from what I understand was around $40 million.
Now, I've left us exactly 4 minutes to power through the two big releases for this weekend. One is the Angelina Jolie movie, and the other one is the Stephen Sondheim movie.
Yes, Angelina Jolie, well, first of all, the Angelina Jolie movie, which is called Unbroken, which is based on a book that was written by Laura Hillenbrand, is an incredible story. I mean, it's the true story of Louis Zamperini, a real legitimate American hero. This was a guy who was in the 1936 Olympics as a track star, competed in front of Hitler, and then a few years later was in World War II as a bombardier. His plane was shot down over the Pacific. He survived in a raft for 47 days, only to be rescued by the Japanese and thrown in a POW camp and tortured for 2 years. Now, Angelina Jolie does a very good job, not a great job, and I do believe she'll be a great director at some point, but there are times where she trades the humanity of the story for a great aesthetic. For instance, the POW camp looks like the Japanese rated a Calvin Klein underwear ad shoot. It's like all the guys are great looking, just put some dirt on them. But there are other moments where, like in The Raft, where she does an excellent job, a technical job as well, of capturing the humanity and really making you feel something. She probably could have managed her time a little better. The movie's over 2 hours, and it didn't need to be, but this is a movie I think everybody should see. 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Okay, and the other one is Into the Woods.
Very popular musical that was probably overshadowed at the time by Phantom of the Opera when it came out. It still won a few Tony Awards. It has been performed countless times in junior high schools and colleges around the country. It had a tour. It had a national tour. It also played on London's West End. And this cast is ridiculous. Meryl Streep, Emily Blunt, Anna Kendrick, Chris Pine, Johnny Depp, James Corden, who's taking over for Craig Ferguson. People will probably be surprised by Chris Pine, Captain Kirk. He can really sing, and he's actually very funny in this. I think my issue with this particular musical, if you don't have a sentimental connection to it, or you're not familiar with the music already, I think you might find yourself being just a bit bored. I don't think that this is particularly emotionally engaging. A lot of times when we see musicals like this, where it only has one catchy tune, and I think it only has one catchy tune, and that's the main title, people might be familiar with it if they've been exposed to the marketing for this show in some shape or form, and it only has one real show-stopping number, which is executed by Meryl Streep. She plays the witch in this musical. Again, I think if you don't have that sentimental connection to it, I think you're going to be a little bored. This movie's also 2 hours and 5 minutes. It's definitely got very good performances, and it's a technically sound movie, but I don't think it's for everybody. So 3 out of 5 stars.
All right, before I go, I got to tell you a quick little story. A couple of nights ago, I went to a screening of a movie that's not coming out for a couple of weeks, so I can't talk about it yet. But before that, they showed a trailer for Hot Tub Time Machine 2. Mm-hmm. And just that idea makes me go, what? Really? Okay, I guess, fine. They didn't get John Cusack, but they've got Craig Robinson and Rob Corddry back for this. David, I'm here to tell you that I've never heard an audience laugh and applaud at a trailer like they did for Hot Tub Time Machine 2. I mean, lots of laughter, and we were there for a fairly serious drama that was showing that night for the screening, but people were laughing hysterically for this, and yet it's going to get buried in January, which is not usually a good month for movies. What's up?
Well, January is a terrible month for movies, and I'll tell you what, that movie was actually, I think it was supposed to come out this month, or at the end of November, and the studio moved it because of the competition. Look, Hot Tub Time Machine 2 is going to do well. Hot Tub Time Machine actually did better than expected, and is almost like a cult classic at this point, even though it only came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
People love that movie. They want to see the sequel. That trailer is actually a very funny trailer. And, it comes out in January, and everybody knows that January is considered a dumping ground for movies. That's when studios release movies that they think aren't very good. But the way the landscape has changed is that you can release a movie in the dumping ground of January and still make a lot of money. So they're hedging their bets and they're saying, nothing else is good is coming out in January. This is a movie that people actually want to see. It's not going to have competition. Let's release it here.
David Blaustein, ABC News entertainment correspondent. Have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Take care. Thanks, man.
It's 8:30 at the Big 5.